What's up everyone, Manny from Motomillion. Welcome back to the R1M series. On the last episode, you guys saw us change our front wheel and the complete braking setup in the front. Now we gotta do the matching stuff to the back. We're gonna change our rear caliper to the underslung brake caliper that we have for this bike. The wheel is gonna change. When we change the wheel, we gotta change the sprocket. And while we're there, we're gonna do the 520 conversion kit on the bike. And lastly, we're gonna change our chain adjusters on the bike as well for this episode, because all that stuff is coming off and we might as well do them all together. So enough talking, let's get to work. I think I'm going to start with breaking this chain. Grab our PBR chain tool, put it in place. This is an all-in-one tool, so it's the Motion Pro PBR. It has brake and rivet and press all in one. Yep, so there you guys go. Basically, we just push this pin out of the link of the chain. Now this is pretty much free. We'll remove this. Right out. So this is our rear wheel out of the way. We're not using anything off of this. I'll remove the sprocket a little later on. Actually, I spoke too soon. We're actually gonna remove the ABS sensor out of this. But right now, my main area of focus is this rear caliper. I wanna get the brake fluid out of the way before we get to all the pretty parts. Just like we did it with the front wheel, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to get the caliper and the brake line set up ready. That way, once we undo this block from here, we could quickly change it over. Now this is all loose. This is our new underslung bracket that we have. It has the provision for the ABS sensor on here, so the ABS sensor will fit right back, which is perfect. And it actually goes on like this, because this fits right here. Perfect. So this fits as intended. So this is a part of our complete Brembo upgrade kit. It comes with the front calipers, the rear caliper, and the underslung bracket. And also it comes with the complete front tubo brake lines, as you saw last episode, and you're going to see us change these ones over too. So I'm going to grab our rear caliper, what we were running in the back. Nickel plated finish as well, and this is the matching one for the front, and this will go on here, so that's perfect. This brake line, as you see, it has a little turn. I'm going to, as far as I remember, because I did the measurements and we custom ordered these brake lines, and I had always intended to have this kink facing outwards so that the brake line is always being pushed away from the wheel. So this goes like this, the kink goes towards the right of the bike. That way the brake line naturally is always being pushed towards the right of the bike, away from the wheel, because the last thing we want is the brake line making contact with the wheel and wearing away at it. Just like our front brake calipers on the rear caliper, we're doing the dressing up part right now and also setting it up. So I changed our banjo bolt to be this Pro-Ti titanium bolt. And we're going to change the bleeder valve to a stall bus valve. We're going to just loosen this first. I'm not going to fully take it out. Then this is the one that we got to get to. Just moving this all out of the way so that we have better access. Maybe I'll zip tie it to the line right here. So now that this is loose, I'm going to grab my 8, take this bolt out. Let's See, it seems pretty dry right now. I didn't lose much fluid. Okay, I think this is tight enough. Let's cut this zip tie that we put in place. Let's try to see if we could push some brake fluid. Now we got 3 hands going. So the thing is that when the stall bus valves are installed, if it's completely empty, you can't build enough pressure to be able to move the pin inside, or the ball, the check valve, whatever you call it. So we first have to kind of manually bleed this.
Open it?
Yeah, open it a little more. Let's see. Now you could clearly tell that the valve is working, because when I let go of
it doesn't go back.
Yep, the foot lever, it's not going back. I'm not going to lie, this has been the easiest rear caliper change I've done on the R1 or on any bike that we've changed the line and the caliper, because I guess just having the extra hands helps. And since we have the extra hands, we could hold this caliper all the way up high here. There we go. So you could tighten it if you want. Close the valve. Let me top up this fluid for now. Now that the caliper is ready, let's get these ABS ring bolts out. Just a funny fact, on a Vespa, if you're changing the front rotors, you actually have to heat up the bolts so that the Loctite gets loose. There's no way you're gonna get those rotor bolts off those Vespas, on the new ones at least. And I know this because I do have a Vespa, believe it or not. Maybe one day I'll show it to you guys. You could be sure that it's not stock. It's actually got an Akrapovic exhaust, Brembo brakes, and Holden suspension on it. We got our ABS ring that we need, which is going to go on here. But before we put this on, I'm going to put the rear rotor on as well. And let me show you that rear rotor. We're using the ultralight MM Racing rear rotor. Just like the fronts and the back, we're going with the black Pro-Tie titanium hardware for the rotors. We have our Yamaha shop manual right here. The rear rotor bolts is 22 foot-pounds. There we go. There we go. That's done. Now we're going to get our ABS ring and the ABS ring bolts. Perfect. So the rotor side, I believe, is done. Now we got to get to the sprocket. The OZ Racing wheels come with their own sprocket carriers. So does the Marchesinis and also the BST wheels. And it's actually lighter than a factory sprocket carrier, which is amazing. But it will use a special sprocket, so the bolt pattern is not the same as the factory one. Even the sprocket nut size is usually not the same as the factory bolts that you have or factory nuts that you have on there. So before, if you're changing the wheels on your bike and you want to get sprocket nuts that fit your OZ wheels, we do have them listed on the website specific for OZ wheels, just so that you're sure everything's going to fit. And this fits in here like this, but before we go ahead and do that, I'm going to get the sprocket on there, the sprocket nuts on there. We're going to torque everything down, because we are going to need to hold the back of this stud so that we don't unspin them or we don't undo them. That way we have everything torqued and ready to go on the bike. And for the rear sprocket, we are running the rear Sita sprocket. And same thing, guys, the rear sprocket is wheel specific. An R1M 520 conversion kit will not fit if you get the sprocket for it. You need to get the OZ Racing specific one. And as you see, it fits as intended on here. And for this one also, we're going to be running Pro-Tie sprocket nuts. All of them are torqued. Now we can put them on the wheel. Perfect, that's it. So now that the wheel is prepped, We are going to install our chain adjusters, and we're running the TWM chain adjusters. And when you're buying chain adjusters for your R1 R1M, make sure that you know that you're getting the correct year, because the 2015 to 2019 had different lengths for the adjustments than the 2020 and the above. Now 2020 to 2023. You want to make sure that the chain adjusters you're getting are for the correct year. And these basically fit right into here. They do click by turn. And don't forget, once you set your chain tension adjustment, there is a set screw under these. You want to tighten these so that this thing doesn't turn freely. That's one thing that gets forgotten about all the time. Going with the black ones, they're available in blue and red to suit whatever your taste is. Beep. That's it. Now that the chain adjusters are on, we're ready to put the wheel on. But before that, while we're here, let's put the carbon fiber chain guard and the rear hugger. The rear hugger, we could do it with the wheel in place, but the chain guard, while the wheel is out, I'm just gonna take advantage that the wheel is not here and install it. And this is our full 6 chain guard. It's the same length as the stock one. The chain guard is on. Let's get to the rear hugger. There are these bushing pieces. That was on the stock hugger that we're transferring over. They get questions what sets full 6 apart from some other carbon that's out there. Full 6 carbon actually has automotive type clear coat on their carbon, where other brands have some plastic coating stuff on there instead of the clear coat. The clear coat gives it a deeper shine, and other companies use the other coatings because stuff that's made in Europe, you need special licenses to spray this kind of finish on it. And for some companies, it's just a way of saving costs. But that being said, let me get my gloves and let me put that rear wheel back on the bike. So the wheel is on, it's spinning freely. Nothing is tightened, that's why you hear all those noises, but the rear brake grabs. The feel's pretty good actually. Now what I'm going to do is that you could probably tell that the chain is missing. We're going to go ahead with the chain install, but since we put a 520 rear sprocket, we got to change the front sprocket, and then we'll get to our chain. So first we got to take the shifter off to be able to get to the sprocket cover. So here's our sprocket cover coming off. We're going to change this with a Geely's tooling sprocket cover that actually looks really cool. Full 6 also makes a carbon fiber sprocket cover, but I really like the look of the Geely's tooling one as well. So it's personal taste. If you wanted to have a sprocket cover that is carbon, you could get it, or the Geely's tooling one that I'll show you shortly. And then if you come take a look, this nut has crushed edges like this. That's for safety. Before we loosen this, we're just going to grab our flathead screwdriver and flatten these out so that we could take this out. So now if you come take a look, you see these edges are no longer pressed in, and that's what that safety lock is. And to remove it, I'm just going to use an impact because it's the fastest way to remove this. There we go. So the 520 is just a thinner sprocket and thinner chain. If you look closely, you could see it. And just like the other one that came off, this goes right in. We are running the EK3D chain in 520. And I'm going to do the black gold color. These come in black gold, gold, and the silver / chrome color. I do like both the gold and the black gold. I always get stuck on which one to use. I haven't used the black gold one for a while. That's why I opted for this. We are going to have to cut some links, and what I'm trying to do is I want to push the axle as far back as possible. This is just a personal preference. Obviously, if you're tracking your bike, there's an optimal setting that you want to whatever track that you use, how much wheel base you want, because that also dictates how the bike performs on the track, or also the dynamics of the bike change. The longer the wheelbase, the less turn that you have, more stability under power you have, and vice versa. The shorter the wheelbase, the bike will be more nimble. But for our sake that we ride on the road, I like to put it as far back as possible. That way, you know, the bike doesn't wheelie as much when you get on the power, if you ever get on it. And in this one, it looks like we're going to remove 2 links off this chain. That's the pin that just fell out. Now this comes off. Has the O-rings on there. And now what you want to do is you want to find your master link. This is our master link. I'm going to be liberal with the lube. Now I got my tool in the rivet position, which is like this. And let's rivet these master links. This is when you want to take your time, take things slowly, because it's easy to spread this too much. And EK doesn't give you any dimensions, but what I like to do is I like to have my vernier calipers with me. I'll check the thickness of the one from the factory. This is around 5.7. On the thickest part, it's probably more, yeah, 5.9 around the thickest part to 6 mil. And then this one that I just pressed, I'll just go on here. This is still at 5.3, so I'm going to press it a little more. Again, I use a vernier caliper to measure the spread of the pins, which we rivet, and I have it at 5.85. I think that's good enough. Now we're done putting the chain on. What you want to do is you want to first make sure that everything is smooth and that you don't see any kinks, especially the master link. If this was too tight, it would kink and it would stay kinked, especially after going through the front sprocket. And we're good. Obviously the axle is not squared right now because we pulled it forward, and we're still going to have to do our chain adjustment. On top of it, nothing on this side is tight yet, so the caliper is not torqued and the axle itself is not torqued. But before that, I want to come back over here to the front. We're going to address our sprocket right now. So let's see, it's supposed to be 103. There we go, it's torqued. This is the front sprocket cover that we're going to be using. It is the Gillies tooling one, and the cool part about it is that you kind of see the shaft, the counter shaft through it. It's this beautiful piece. Just like this. That front sprocket cover is on. It looks beautiful. We're almost done. All we got to do is set our chain tension and tighten our rear axle. We should be good to go. This checks the chain slack. The factory setting is 35 to 45 or 25 to 35. Let's see. 25 to 35 millimeters. With the initial adjustments I did, this is just at the end of 35 millimeters. So I'm actually gonna tighten the chain a tad bit more because this chain is also gonna loosen. These chains don't loosen too much, the EK3DZ chains, but I'm still gonna tighten it just a tad bit more. Give it another go. Make sure you do both sides equally. Yeah, this is right around 33 millimeters. We're gonna leave it at this because even when I do it by hand, it seems a little tight, but the measurement doesn't lie, but it's within specs. Now we could tighten these lower bolts that I talked about so that the chain adjuster doesn't move. There we go, that's 140 foot-pounds. There we go, that wheel is torqued. The bike's almost ready. Now what's left is we gotta figure out how to nicely zip tie this brake line on here. I think I'm just gonna zip tie it just like this. And I think if I zip tie it here, it's good practice, even if you know that it's tightened, just to go over some of the bolts that you've dealt with. Whenever you touch any of your rear brake stuff on your motorcycle, make sure you have no rear brake drag. This bike has metal wheels. On carbon wheels, it's a lot more important that you don't have brake drag because all that heat generated from the brakes goes into the hub, and that's what almost 99% of the carbon fiber wheel failures happen because of the extra heat. But even though we don't have carbon wheels, I just like to double check all of this stuff to make sure that we do not have such issues. Yeah, I just want to hold the bike. There you go. So how you do that is basically you just put the bike on a stand, you roll your wheel, and this wheel is rolling freely. Just hit your brakes a couple times. There we go, and let me double check our banjo here that we tightened it. That's tight. There you go, guys. I think now we can say we're officially done. I think I got one more touch. I keep saying that we're done, but I wanted to do this. I want to put the thread checker. What this does is this is a paint, and when you put it on a bolt, it'll harden in I guess in a bubble form, and if it cracks, you know that the bolt is coming loose. This is mostly from the race car world that I've seen. I barely see it on motorcycles, but also it's pretty tricky to apply. But I want to try to put it on here. I'm going to spin the wheel. Next one. There you go, guys. I think now we're officially done. We put our thread checkers on there. Now we'll know that if it ever comes loose, we'll know by these markings that we put on these sprocket nuts. It looks really cool. It's a cool touch also. I think kind of goes with the OZ Racing Wheels orange logo there. So there you have it, guys. We got our rear wheel on. So officially the bike has a matching pair of front and rear wheels, matching front and rear brakes. We got our GP4 RX calipers in the front, our underslung Brembo P234 in the rear. We put our TWM chain adjusters on there, our 520 kit, our surprise pieces, which are these carbon pieces for the chain guard and the rear hugger on the bike. On the next episode, you're either going to see us change the rear master cylinder and the rear sets, or this bike's going to be on a dyno. We want to get that baseline power figure after the mods because we know what it did before the mods. And we could go further into tuning the bikes or explore the tuning options further than what the bike already has supplied by Brent Tuning. Either way, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Until next time, guys, have a great one.